Please, thank you. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number. Oui, tous les témoins sont testés, Monsieur Villemur.
All the witnesses were tested. Perfect.
Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to meeting number 42 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on the Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. La réunion aujourd'hui.
Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of June 23, 2022, and therefore members can attend in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application.
Should any technical challenges arise, please advise me immediately, and please note that we may need to suspend for a few minutes as we need to ensure that all members are able to formally participate pursuant to Standing Order 1083H and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, May 16, 2022. The committee is resuming its study of access to information in the privacy system. I'd like to now welcome our witnesses today. As an individual, Mr. Ken Rubin, who's an investigative researcher and transparency advocate. From Canadians for Accountability, Mr. Alan Cutler, the former president, and from Democracy Watch, Mr. Duff Conacher, who is the co-founder. Mr. Rubin, the floor is yours for a 5-minute opening statement, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Your committee has invited me to give testimony about the state of access to information in Canada. So let me share my experiences with you. This is the 15th review, by the way, and my over 15 presentations out of some 40 or more to Parliament on public interest matters. Been around the block. My public interest quest to get access to information records started a decade and a half before the Access to Information Act regime was adopted 40 years ago. All that adopted access legislation did was to place more roadblocks in the way for myself and others intent on exposing how Ottawa really operates. Since the Access Act's passage, officials have been saying with a straight face that the Act has always worked pretty well, needing only occasional minor tweaking. Its most consistent need, they say, is for more millions of dollars, for them, of course, but those extra resources received, however, unfortunately, go to further propping up them while only permitting Canadians to receive severed materials that lessen our freedom to know. I offer some evidence of how such rigged access mainly serves the vested interests of those wanting Canadians to know very little, if anything. 1. Hiding unmarked children's graves at a disgraceful racist residential schools. 2. Covering up bribery and influence from the CPR scandal to the sponsorship mess to the current SC Lavalin debacle. 3. Ignoring for too long Hockey Canada, the Armed Forces, and the RCMP's disgraceful conduct of turning away from handling, even encouraging sexual assault and injury cases, all done under the eyes of government officials. 4. Repressing the public knowing about the workings of the bread price fixing scandal and downplaying the high-pressure sales stakes Canadians face at the big banks as the banks make record-breaking profits. And if my count is right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keeping Canadians in the dark about policies that give us the highest cell phone prices, aren't we good, in the world, and about the behind-the-scenes lobbying that has given Canadians some of the highest drug and food prices in the world. So it's hard to get at those things. Further, it is more than sad and disgusting that our frontline health workers did not get fuller information and less confusing data from authorities during the pandemic. I personally witnessed the suppression of whistleblowers' information like what Pierre Blais and Shiv Chopra had when they tried to alert the public of health hazards, and gotten severed records after delays and complaints about officials actively assisting and funding the lethal asbestos and tobacco industries in Canada and abroad. I've seen highly redacted records having gotten the consent of Mayor Ra and Manya Mazig, where authorities' twisted misinformation led to the rendition of Mayor Arar to Syrian tortures. I and others have fought for records that highlight the wasted billions of dollars spent on information technologies that barely work. Just see how the partial revelations coming out about the millions poured into the app Arrive Can were done while cheap known alternatives were ignored. All of this is made possible because of a system of oppressive cabinet confidences, policy, legal, and economic advice, and commercial confidentiality, and a sleight of hand that buries, for instance, the real costs and beneficiaries of large contracts like the multi-billion-dollar Combat Naval Ship Program.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Rubin.
Yes. Ours is a relatively young country, but we are well known for our secrecy and corruption worldwide. Canada places low down when ranked for disclosure capabilities. Other countries, however, like New Zealand, quickly release cabinet records. I've suggested many solutions, but they've been ignored. What we need is automatic, quick, fulsome disclosures guaranteed under freedom of expression constitutional rights, and a duty to serve and strong penalties built in right to know legislation. Let's get on with ending the culture and corruption in Canada. That's so we get real data and not more spins and spits of information fed to us by the feds. No doubt, though, I and others still have to monitor and make use of a greatly improved right to information should that happen. Otherwise, as in the past, I and others will continue struggling to get tidbits of data against many odds and barriers. More need to join us, as my website says. What people do not know can often hurt
Thank you,
them.
Mr.
And
Rubin.
finally,
I know you have a lot more to cover.
Just a final paragraph.
Okay, I'll give you a couple more seconds.
It's your turn. It's your and Canadians' turn to pull back the curtains and make us truly have the right to information. That should be the case in a real democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions for you as well. Next, from Mr. Alan Cutler from Canadians for Accountability. Now, Mr. Cutler, I understand that you're not working off notes. I'm just going to ask that you speak clearly and legibly and slowly so that the interpreters are able to follow you. Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Unlike Mr. Rubin, I'm not going to talk about what needs to be done. I'm going to tell you how it exists and the reality of the situation for whistleblowers, for people who are trying to find out what's going on. ATIP is supposed to help, not be the guardians and guarding the lock and drawbridge to the castle and won't put it down. They're supposed to help, and they don't. Many ATIPs, and I have that experience, are over a year old. I have one right now that is 5 years old, and the statement I have from them is, we don't know when we will get around to it, but we have other priorities. So that tells you the way they look at ATIPs. I've also had an ATIP officer just bluntly say, if you have a problem, complain to the Information Commissioner. Why do they say that? Because they know the Information Commissioner is so overloaded that it could be 2 to 3 years before she gets around or he gets around with their executives to looking at the situation. So you've got a real problem. Now, Michael Dagg, unfortunately, has passed away now, but he was very, very active in the ATIP industry. And I have a copy of a letter that was sent to him by Archives, 2 letters actually. One on a particular request, they said they needed a 1,000-day extension beyond the 30-day statutory time. The second letter I have is the one where they told him it would be an 80-year extension. They put it in writing that it would take 80 years to get him the information. Now, the other thing that goes on, we were dealing with, both of us, Michael and I, dealing with Brad Birkenfeld and the Department of Justice and trying to get the documents that Brad gave them in 2008. And Justice, we even had letters that said we were authorized to get the information, and Justice would not give us the information. At 2 different times, they said there was 0 files, and then another time they're suddenly up at 6,000 plus files. They were all over the place. And finally, I asked them, why have they now, 8 years later, sent documents to CRA? All of a sudden, there was this access request that came in from CRA, and they answered it. Well, they must have told CRA what to write. But I asked them why they sent it after 8 years of doing nothing with it. And they just simply said to me, we don't understand the question. Because I'm looking for documents to tell me why they just sat and did nothing. We don't understand the question. Well, that tells you the attitude they have. And of course, they don't want us to have the information at all. They're really avoiding us. And ATIP officers are supposed to help by legislation. They don't. An RCMP officer, for example, says to me, the ATIP branch does not answer questions. I'm looking for particular information on a document. If you have questions you need to answer, route them to the Media Relations office. And then the other thing on it is, well, this is what I'm looking for. Well, that's information. If you tell me the document, well, I can't tell you the document. I can tell you what I want and what's on the document, but I can't. I just can't tell you it's document 4 of this file. How am I to know that? But the RCMP just turned me down. Oh, and that one's gone to the Information Commissioner, and it's in abeyance. It's been about a year now. Eventually, it'll get looked at. I know that.
Minute.
Okay, well, quickly speaking, whistleblowers can't wait for these long delays. They don't go through access anymore. There's no point. They're exposed. The longer it sits as a request, the more likely they are going to be spotted and exposed. So they don't want to. So they won't go there anymore. So we do everything we can to work around it. We don't do that. And as Ken said, when we get the information, it's vetted to the point of uselessness. If you get an access and you've got this huge stream of exemptions, one, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not able to look at what all these exemptions are. And two, I'm not allowed to challenge an exemption because I'm not allowed to look at what the information was that was part of the exemption. Again, back to the Information Commissioner and wait in line. So suffice to say, it's broke. And the external whistleblowers I use and I deal with, they nowadays, and more than one have said to me, long delays, documents being destroyed, they consider government corruption just part of doing business now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cutler. And I don't want to sound rude to any of our witnesses, and certainly not to any members of the committee, but I am going to get into the habit as the chair to give 1-minute warnings on the time, and we'll do that as we go around as well, to be fair. Okay, next, thank you, Mr. Cutler. Next is Mr. Duff Conacher, who's the co-founder of Democracy Watch. Mr. Conacher, you have 5 minutes with your opening statement.
Thank you very much, Chair, and to the committee members for this opportunity to appear before you today. Like Ken Rubin, I've been here several times before on this and other issues, on this issue dating back 20 years. What I'm going to do today is, in my statement, summarize 18 key changes needed to the Act and the enforcement system, and then I welcome your questions about them. The 18 changes are mainly based upon this committee's unanimous June 2016 report, the former Information Commissioner's March 2015 report, the current Commissioner's January 2021 report that have all called for key changes, and of course the December 2021 report by the government that was the result of its public consultations conducted last year, which made it clear that all stakeholders support 10 key changes. The first section of changes needed are to the rules. The Access to Information Act is broken, as all of these reports and the 2 other witnesses today have noted. And so initially it should be changed to cover fully all government institutions, publicly funded institutions, and public purpose institutions, including cabinet offices. That's been recommended by many stakeholders and experts, and the commissioners, and as well the other recommendations I'll be going through have also been called for by stakeholders for years. Secondly, require every institution to create detailed records of decisions and actions. There's no reason that this cannot be done and uploaded onto a searchable website as meetings and communications and decisions are ongoing in government. Very simple to do and set that up as an electronic system. There should be routine disclosure of not only those communications and meetings and decision-making processes, but of all records online that can be disclosed, and it's in the public interest to disclose, and that should be routine disclosure on a searchable online database that would reduce the need to make requests. There should be requirement of all institutions to respond to access requests as soon as possible, with permission required from the commissioner to extend beyond the 30-day time limit and a maximum extension of 60 days. Number 5, all exceptions to disclosure should be clearly and narrowly defined and limited to areas in which secrecy is actually required in the public interest. Number 6, the commissioner should be allowed to review all denials of disclosure and to order disclosure if it would not cause harm or is in the public interest. And if records are not disclosed because of a public interest exception, they should be required to be disclosed no longer than 20 years later and less than that for cabinet records. Number 7, anyone who does factual or policy research for the government in an area not covered by an exception should be allowed to speak to the media and publicly about the topic, the findings, and their conclusions without being required to seek approval first from anyone. Number 8, the Act should be changed to allow a filing of an access request from anyone, even if they don't live in Canada. And number 9, rule change, the $5 request fee should be eliminated, and institutions should be prohibited from charging search fees for records that have not been maintained in a way that facilitates access. But no law enforces itself, and so changes are needed to strengthen the enforcement because the enforcement system has been revealed to not be strong enough to stop the delay and denial of the public's right to know. The commissioner first should be given explicit powers to require systemic changes in institutions to improve compliance with the Act, including managing records effectively. Commissioners should be empowered and mandated to penalize violations with a sliding scale of fines, depending on the seriousness of the violation.
1 minute, Mr.
For
Conacher.
things like, thank you. For things like intentionally obstructing access, not including creating records, not maintaining records properly, or delaying responding to a request. Number 12, recommendation, the penalties should include for government officials attempting to escape penalty by resigning or retiring, loss or partial clawback of any severance or pension payments. Number 13, the commissioner should be required to issue a public ruling on a searchable website for every complaint they receive and situation they review, and there must be a clear right for any member of the public to appeal a decision to court. Number 14, the commissioner is currently chosen by the ruling party cabinet through a secretive partisan process. The Federal Court of Appeal has ruled that the cabinet is biased when making these kind of appointments. A fully independent, nonpartisan appointments commission should be established to search and nominate qualified candidates that would be approved by an all-party committee of the House for these kind of positions.
Thank you, Mr. Conacher.
And I'll also go in answering questions to other key changes to ensure adequate resources and strong enforcement that's timely and effective for and to protect and uphold the public's right to know.
Thank you, Mr. Conacher. Just before we start in our questioning, I've been advised that there will be votes at 5:50, which means bells are at 5:20. So when the bells ring, I'll seek the guidance of the group here on what we want to do. But my preference is to get through the first round. Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if you would find consensus around the table for us to try and complete 2 rounds by 5:40, and which would give members 10 minutes to get to the House. I'm not sure if that's enough time for them, at which time you could potentially adjourn the meeting, having all parties having had 2 full rounds. Just instead of interrupting at 5:20 once bells rings, perhaps you could canvass the room for that.
So I'll seek consent of the room for that. That's fair. So we'll get through 2 rounds. So that means I'm going to stick to tight timelines here. Mr. Couric, you have 6 minutes in the first round, followed by Ms. Hepner.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the witnesses. And I would just note before I get into my questioning, please feel free for all of the witnesses to send further information, including specific recommendations. I know there's been a number that have been outlined here today. Now, a couple of yes or no questions to all three witnesses in fairly rapid succession, if I could. And the first question is an effective access to information system essential in a modern democracy? We'll start with Mr. Cutler.
Yes.
Mr. Rubin?
Definitely.
And Mr. Conacher?
Yes, very much so.
So do you find that our current system in this country would meet the threshold that you would believe is necessary for a modern democracy? And I'll go again, Mr. Cutler.
No.
Mr. Rubin.
Absolutely not.
Mr. Conacher.
No, I think we're ranked now the 54th in the world.
Okay.
So we're way behind.
So I appreciate that. So now I have a few more specific questions that I'll ask for a little bit more information about. And first, Mr. Cutler, you mentioned some loopholes. In 30 or 40 seconds, if you could, just talk about how this committee could make some recommendations to fix some of the challenges surrounding loopholes.
There's a simple loophole, which I mentioned to you before, was I've made an access request. I've been waiting 60 days for the acknowledgement. They've cashed the check, but they have not acknowledged my access request. The 30 days, which they will ask for an extension on, I guarantee it, but the 30 days doesn't start until they send me the letter.
Right.
So they've got 60 days already, and now they're going to look for more time?
Yeah. Mr. Conacher, is there anything that you'd like to add in just a few seconds?
Yes, just in terms of submissions, I have made a submission to the committee. You will be receiving it once it's translated of the 18 recommendations. Just to pick up on one that Michel Drapeau spoke about on Monday, his suggestion to have a right to go to court after 1 year, I think that's not the way to go, because the courts don't move any more quickly and also have a backlog. The real solution is Parliament should be required to provide whatever amount of funding the Commissioner proposes annually, that the Auditor General and Parliamentary Budget Officer assess and determine is needed to ensure effective, timely enforcement of the Act and effective training of public officials about how to uphold the right to know and the right of access effectively. And that would solve a lot of the problems, because along with the penalties that I suggested, and everyone would know you're going to get caught if you're breaking the law and you're going to get penalized very soon. And that would clean things up enormously.
That, and just in a few seconds, Mr. Rubin, would you have anything to add to that?
We just start with creative avoidance of a massive scale, record destruction if it's a draft. Also, oral communications is rampant. You name it, this government and previous governments have done it.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. So, Mr. Conacher, regarding ATIP requests, would you be able to highlight some of, in your observation, some of the worst offenders within governmental departments? Could you highlight those for us? And again, I'm on a tight timeline, so as quickly as is possible.
I think it's just simply better to refer you to the Information Commissioner's report. Every year it changes, which the institutions are the worst. The overall record is very bad at meeting the 30-day deadline, which is the legal requirement. And so the violations are rampant across the board, across all institutions. I've waited years myself.
Okay, so just a follow-up, a few thoughts, and then I do have one more important question that I want to ask. Mr. Conacher, any question or thoughts on Bill C-58 you'd like to share with the committee?
Bill C-58 was a step backwards in some ways. It certainly didn't keep the 2015 promises of the Liberals to make government information open by default, which is the direct quote from the Liberals' 2015 platform.
Okay.
The Commissioner has power now to make orders, but it's not strong enough. You need power to make, and a requirement for minimum penalties if you violate the law. That's going to change the whole incentive to comply right away, and that's a key change.
No, and I appreciate that, and I see Mr. Rubin, just 10 seconds if you could.
Well, Bill C-58 destroyed the Access Act because it hived off as phony proactive, the Prime Minister's records, Minister's records, and a host of other things.
No, and I
1 minute, Mr. Kerr.
no, I appreciate that. So my last question is, I've heard from a number of witnesses, both related to access to information, but other issues as well, that Canada needs whistleblower protections, both from within government and for those that would try to highlight some of the challenges from one or two steps surrounding it. So I'm going to go through all three again. Does Canada have appropriate whistleblower protections, or do we need more? I'll start with Mr. Cutler.
I wouldn't even start with me because you finished with me.
Okay.
We don't have them. We have never had them.
Okay, well,
the
now
Accountability Act
I'm almost
did
out
not
of time.
give them.
I'm almost out of time. So, Mr. Rubin.
So Pierre Poilievre and John Baird established the worst, most lousiest whistleblowing non-protection act in the world.
And Mr. Conacher.
Yeah, we're even further behind. We're ranked about 60th in whistleblower protection, so we're even worse than we are compared to the rest of the world in access to information.
Okay, so thank you for your frankness, all three of you. Next, we go for 6 minutes. Ms. Hepner, you have the floor.
Do you want to split time? Okay. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I'd like to go back to Bill C-58, which allowed proactive disclosure of lots of information from this government. So I'm wondering, I guess, from all three of you, if you think that this helped make government more open and transparent in any way. Mr. Rubin, you can start.
Well, no, it didn't, because it's one-sided information. Take briefing notes, lists that are prepared. Well, so what do you get? You get, then you go and get the briefing notes. They're sanitized talking points. They have nothing to do with the real operations of government, which people should have the right to know. So that in itself is illustrative of the proactive disclosure. You get a few Prime Minister's records, but you can't get all of his other records. So it's a farce.
Thank you. Mr. Cutler, do you see anything more open and transparent in government since we've had Bill C-58?
Absolutely nothing. I have seen really no change from one bill to the other, except the fact that the whole process has fallen apart. The idea of getting information in a timely fashion has been thrown out the window. They don't care because they know nothing will happen if they don't do it. So what can you do about it? I can't do anything about it. You are the only people who can do something about that.
And Mr. Conacher, would you like to weigh in as well?
Yes, Bill C-58 ignored this committee's unanimous June 2016 report, ignored all of the other stakeholders. The information commissioners have documented in their annual reports very clearly that things are worse than they have been in the past. And I challenge you as committee members to work together and put forward a private member bill. Ignore your leaders if they're saying we don't want to do this, because the June 2016 unanimous report didn't work to foster key changes. And so I challenge you all, work together. Put out a unanimous report and then put a private member bill together and jointly all support it, and challenge the rest of your colleagues to vote against it and vote for excessive government secrecy and denial of the public's right to know.
Okay, in that vein, so we've heard a number of proponents who would like to broaden the existing Access to Information Act to remove some of the exclusions that are in place, like solicitor-client privilege and cabinet confidence. I'm wondering if any of you think that this would remove the ability to have frank and open discussions, that some individuals might start using less secure personal networks to discuss government business. And I'm wondering if this is a risk any of you think is a valid point of concern. Mr. Conacher, do you want to start? You're on mute, sir.
Sorry. This claim has often been made, but actually I think that you're unable to speak truth to power and have frank discussions when you're doing it in secret, because then the government can always deny what has been recommended from the public service, and there's no record of it. And so the public service can't speak up and say, no, that's not what we recommended. So it actually, openness facilitates having frank discussions. And if there's a duty to not document, then it will be illegal to go offline. And so hopefully with penalties for doing that, among other violations, that would discourage, and the duty to document would make it very clear that if there's a decision made and there's no documentation of it, then obviously someone's violating the law. So that's the way to go forward and actually have good democratic, good government decision making, as opposed to the secretive and bad government decision making we often see now.
How about you, Mr. Rubin? Do you see any value in cabinet confidence?
With a few areas, I could see it, maybe for 2-3 years. But in most areas, no. It's just highly overrated. I went and got cabinet discussion papers when they're available, about 400 of them, and it was just like a municipal council records. There's nothing in there that in most cases was highly sensitive. It's so overblown. They're not cabinet confidence, they're cabinet records. They're just like any other record in the government. And for people to take the example of cabinet confidences, do you know that the records of cabinet are never kept in full, no transcript? They're just sanitized summaries, and that is not full and frank discussion. And even if it is full and frank discussion, Canadians have the right to know that.
1 minute.
What do you think of cabinet confidence?
I have most limited experience of any of them. What struck me was when you were talking about not keeping records. Well, text messaging is rampant in the government. They're really avoiding it, and they know what they're doing because if they text back and forth, there's no written record. And it's becoming more and more common to just avoiding the whole business. I'm certain Mr. Rubin would agree with me, and Mr. Conacher would too.
So one change that I've noticed since I was a journalist filing for access to information requests is the cost is a lot lower for anyone who wants to access information. It's $5 across the board. It doesn't matter how many documents you, as a journalist before, we used to, decide not to pursue a particular avenue of inquiry if it was going to cost too much money. Now it's just $5. But our previous witness in our last committee suggested that fee should be actually higher.
Ms. Hepner, can I suggest that maybe in the next round you get to that question? Sure. Thank you. Prochaine, Monsieur Villemur, vous avez 6 minutes.
Mr. Villemur, you have 6 minutes. Thank you very much. Hello, Mr. Conacher. I have questions for you. Section 20 in the Access to Information Act, is it balanced? Is it overly protective? Is it not enough?
Thank you. Well, I could say the same thing about any of the exemptions. They're all, unfortunately, too broad. They all need to be narrowed. And Section 20 is one of the most regularly abused. And so that's our general recommendation. There can be a specific discussion about how to narrow any particular exception. There are also exclusions, and those exclusions should all be turned into exceptions, because currently with exclusions, the commissioner has no power to review the documents to determine whether they're being withheld properly. And so those are the general recommendations I would make. And if you ask me about any of the sections, I would make the same statement. They're all too broad, and they all need to be narrowed to ensure that what is not disclosed, for example, to protect national security or a police investigation, or a cabinet decision-making process, is only protecting what really needs to be protected, and has as a default, as again the Liberals promised in 2015, that government information shall be open by default.
Merci beaucoup. Le 5 octobre dernier.
On October 5th, we were talking with the Information Commissioner, and I asked if the government had a culture of secrecy or openness, and she said it was mostly a culture of secrecy. Do you have any comments on that?
I assume you're asking me again?
Oui, je m'excuse.
Yes, for you, yes.
Et pardon-moi aussi, il faut que je pratique mon français.
And apologies, I have to practice my French. so I will respond in English.
Yes, there is a culture of secrecy, but it's really because the act, it's called the Access to Information Act. It really should be called the Guide to Keeping Information from the Public That They Have a Right to Know. And so it's not surprising because such a law encourages a culture of secrecy, not a culture of transparency. As many others have pointed out for now more than 20 years, certainly in my experience, and many reports have called out, and this House as well called unanimously for key changes to stop this culture of secrecy. So yeah, it's well established, and again, we're in the 50s, and behind more than 50 other countries in the world in terms of best practice access to information standards.
Avec vous encore, Monsieur Conacher.
Another question for you, Mr. Conacher. In your experience, you talk about good governance. The national security exception, is it too often used for disclosing contracts or agreements between parties?
Yes, and like all exceptions, again, is too broad, and there cannot be exclusions at all, and there has to be a proof of harm if disclosure happened, and also a public interest override, with the commissioner able to examine all documents. And often in the whole area of contracts, of commercial information, much more information is protected that needs to be, all that needs to be protected is very much proprietary information that is really the basis of a corporation's operations. Anything more than that,
Merci
protecting
beaucoup.
contractees,
Thank you.
it's all excessive government secrecy.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cutler, I would like to start by thanking you for being here and thank you for all the work you've done over the past few years. With regards to what the Information Commissioner said about it being a culture of secrecy, what do you think about this?
Excusez en anglais. My French has really declined since I've retired officially from the government.
Sans problème.
If you don't use it, you lose it. Yes, there is a culture of secrecy, and it's hard to explain, except nobody wants to tell you anything. That's really what it is. It's closed units, and you ask access to information, they tell you, well, and that's what I said, the RCMP told me what I was asking for was information, not documents. Well, that's a way of preventing me from getting into where I want to be. And this happens all the time. It's like a closed door, and I'm out there banging on it, trying to get in. I have a battering ram. It's not working. I'm using expressive material, but it's so frustrating because they have the culture.
Je vais vous couper.
I'm going to have to cut you off for two questions. The government's culture, has it changed over the past couple of years? Yes or no?
Not at the last couple of years, but over the last 10 years, yes.
Le mieux ou le pire?
For better or for worse?
Selon vous, est-ce que la culture du parti...
Has the Liberal Party's culture changed?
I don't put it down to a party so much as a bureaucracy and a culture within a bureaucracy. All you have to do is look at Phoenix, which is a prime example. In the public sector, private sector, you'd have been fired for the debacle. In the public sector, they were transferred, worst case scenario, transferred to a new place, and they still got their bonus.
Merci, Monsieur Villemure.
Thank you, Mr. Villemure.
To Mr. MP Desjardins from the NDP, sir, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do also want to thank my colleagues here for good questions and also the witnesses for being present. I think those are good words that you shared with us at the beginning of this. And I want to just delve into parts of what you had mentioned. And I think for Canadians, it's particularly important to understand the framework of access to information versus the right to information. I think these are frameworks that, of course, it's easy to talk about access. You know, imagine going to a library, not being able to read any books, versus the right to actually have the information. And so I'd like to have testimony from each of the witnesses, if we may, starting with Mr. Rubin, on the difference between in your speech you made, the difference between access to information and the right to information.
Right now, there's a myth that we have the right to information, but until we firmly establish under the Charter Section 2B, freedom of expression, that we have a right to access freedom of information, we're at a loss. I don't care what the courts say about a quasi-constitutional thing. Until it's put in there as an amendment to the Act that we have the constitutional right, we don't have that right. It's a privilege, and it's taken advantage by government people. And that's part of the problem with the culture of secrecy is everybody likes to say on both sides it's broken. Well, in whose interest is it broken? It's in the vested interests of the government officials who want that secrecy and who want to continue with that secrecy. The system, until it's really reformed and less secrecy, and we have a right, is never going to work. Never, never, never.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rubin. Mr. Cutler?
He's absolutely right. I have a right to accessing information, in my opinion. Am I able to access it? No. As I've said, it's like a closed door, and they keep the key, which is even worse. So they're not going to let me in. But what else can I say about it except the information's there, and until you can change the law, but you also have to change the culture. And you need the people at the top, which is the politicians of all parties, who say this is what it will be. And then the bureaucracy will conform.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Conacher?
Yes, government secrecy is a recipe for corruption, waste, abuse of the public, and decisions that protect private interests and violate the public interest. And sunshine is a good disinfectant, as a wise U.S. Supreme Court justice said about a century ago. And the secrecy that is allowed under the Access to Information Act is not the only form of excessive government secrecy. Secret lobbying is allowed. Secret investments are allowed by cabinet ministers and MPs and senators and their staff, and by government employees. And as was mentioned before, our whistleblower protection system is actually protecting people from having the whistle blown on them, as opposed to protecting whistleblowers who are reporting wrongdoing. And all of that secrecy adds up to bad government decision making.
For each of that, and just quickly, I'd like to just confirm. Mr. Rubin mentioned quickly this idea that this it's a privilege, and so I just want to confirm for the study that the concept of the right to information is currently not within the existing ATI system. Yes or no?
A provision which was even decimated further by Bill C-58. It's not a constitutional part of the Constitutional Act, and until we get that, we're lost. We will never, the powers to be, the corporations, the law enforcement agencies, the bureaucrats and politicians too, will not allow this. Even though Parliament and MPs right here have problems getting information and should realize that their rights are being screwed around with too.
Mr. Cutler?
It's interesting that Mr. Rubin mentioned about information for parliamentarians. I know for a fact I asked a couple of years back for some information, and I got it through Access to Information. The particular minister I was dealing with asked for it through an order paper, and he got the same question. He got different information. I couldn't believe it. But how do you control that? Because the bureaucracy, the way it's structured, controls the flow of information. And if they don't like you as a minister, as a politician, they're going to make it very difficult for you, because they have tremendous power from the top down. So things have to change is the only way to say it.
And I just want to make sure that Mr. Conacher has a chance to answer this portion.
Yes. Well, the exclusions and the loopholes define the rights to access. And so you're right. The law, the Access to Information Act, is actually more loophole than it is rules in providing access. The purpose in Section 2.1 is that to enhance the accountability and transparency of federal institutions in order to promote an open and democratic society and to enable public debate on the conduct of those institutions. But the rest of the Act does not fulfill that purpose in any way. And the 18 changes that I'm calling for today, and that have been called for by many others in the past, would actually turn it into an open government law instead of a guide to keeping information from the public that they have a right to know.
Thank you, Mr. Conacher. Thank you, MP Desjarlais. En avance de commencer le deuxième tour.
Before moving to the second round, the bells are ringing. Mr. Gould, you have 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. Thank you for explaining your experience. I don't feel reassured, and I don't think that Canadians will feel reassured when we're talking about a culture of secrecy and incompetency. If the trend continues, what will happen? I'll start with Mr. Cochler.
Well, my experience, I went through the sponsorship scandal, obviously, and everybody said things were going to improve. And what I have witnessed since then, 2006, is a deterioration. The society, and the more the federal government accepts it, the more society accepts corruption. And you start looking at what people are representing. They're representing the worst and not the best. And access, when we're trying to get the information out, they're again giving us the worst, not the best that they can give us. With some exceptions, don't get me wrong, and a lot of the access officers really want to do a good job, but their hands are tied by the legislation, by what's going on. They give out I've had misinformation given to me, and the answer is, when I'm challenging it, go to the information commissioner. I'm going, well, wait a sec, I can prove you're wrong when you're telling me I can't have something, but you're saying I have to go to the information commissioner. There doesn't seem to be a good solution under the present act. We are a third world country in our legislation, and there's no denying it. We cannot maintain we're up there. We're third world.
I think trying to get a public employee to talk to you is like trying, I don't know, to do something that you can't do. And we have a serious problem in this country where people are intimidated by excessive rules from central agencies like Treasury Board, the Prime Minister's Office, the PCO, and that intimidation ripples through everything we do. And when corporations add their 2 cents in and objections, and when law enforcement say it's a matter of security, national security, on and on it goes, you don't stand a chance if you're just the average person. And so what we have to do is get rid of those, not the people, but the attitude, and start from a constitutional right to know.
Merci, Monsieur Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Gould.
Oh, vous avez des autres questions?
Do you have other questions? Because you have 2 minutes. Mr. Conacher hasn't responded yet.
Yes. Scandalous behavior, whether it's dishonesty or unethical behavior, secretive behavior or waste, the more it happens, the more it becomes routine, the less it becomes news, and the more accepted it becomes, as Mr. Cutler was highlighting. And that leads to decline. And so that's why we need these wholesale systemic changes to change the culture, to penalize wrongdoing, to discourage violations of the public's right to know, and reverse the trend, which is more and more encouragement of denial of the public's right to know. And if these changes are not made, things will just get worse.
A minute.
1 minute.
An autre minute?
No, thank you.
See. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. My first question is for Mr. Conacher. In your work review, access to information and privacy systems, what are your findings with respect to provincial ATI systems and their performances?
Well, the provincial laws are generally based on the federal law, which happens a lot in Canada. If the feds pass a law, the same thing has happened with the lobbying law and with some of the ethics rules. The provinces essentially copy it. So we see the same loopholes across the country. Some of the provinces have order-making power for the commissioners, like the federal commissioner has been offered recently and given recently. But that has not been enough to stop the denials and delays because, again, there's no penalties for violating the law. You know, if you park illegally anywhere in Canada, even if you're doing no harm, not parked in front of a fire hydrant, it's no bother to anyone, you'll pay a higher fine, more of a penalty for that than a fundamental denial of the public's right to know of key information that would reveal government wrongdoing and wastes of billions of dollars. That's a perverse system that we have. And so some of the provinces have a public interest override. It's, again, not strong enough because the commissioner's enforcement powers are not strong enough. There are a few provinces with a few measures that are better than the feds, but overall the performance is the same because the same loopholes are there, the same weak enforcement and the lack of penalties for these fundamental violations of key democratic rights.
And you've talked about timelines previously. Which Canadian jurisdiction has the shortest and the longest ATIP response timelines?
Oh, that's very difficult to summarize just generally because you have multiple different institutions. It's changing year to year. If you took the Canadian government, for example, soon after the Federal Accountability Act was passed, it extended the law to 15 more public federal institutions, and there was suddenly a huge backlog of complaints and delays as those institutions got up and running. So it's very difficult to generalize in that way. The key thing is to remember we are 54th or so in the world. So we're way behind in terms of ensuring an effective and timely right to know.
Okay, and I'll go to Mr. Cutler. You know, in this committee previous meetings, our witness testified that the Office of Information Commissioner has adequate funding and that the issue is the internal allocation of resources. Do you agree? Why or why not?
Okay. I cannot agree or disagree. I cannot only tell you that the job's not getting done. Okay, if they need more funding, give them more funding to hire people who actually work, not just executives. I don't like waiting in line and just having to hope one day they'll pull me out. And also waiting as they prioritize the list. So I get put down at the bottom where media gets put up higher. There's a problem in the allocation, but also in the in the ability to do the job. So if they need more people, give them, but make certain that the people are workers.
Okay, thank you. And then while the government reviews what changes need to be made in the long term, are there improvements government can make to the ATI system in the short term? Any one of you can answer that.
1 minute.
Yeah, they could stop quoting every damn exemption that they can creatively use. They can get off their whatevers and answer the requests instead of waiting 5-10 years. They can do a lot of things which they have an attitude problem that they don't want to do. And as for the provincial governments, they are equally first-generation secrecy places. They also have the fees that they can still use as a barrier. What we use now federally instead of a barrier is we just say, done, we'll give you 120 days, 320 days, time extension, go away.
Okay, thank you.
It's bad.
That's all the questions I have for.
Thank you, Mr. Baines. The prochaine.
Mr. Villemur, you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would have taken my colleagues' leftover time. But anyway, Mr. Rubin, this week an organization received 290 blank pages after an ATIP request. What do you think of such treatment?
Well, I guess they had something really important to say if they couldn't get it out in about 5 pages. But that's common. That's not uncommon at all. And, you know, they have machines now that you don't have to be an access officer. You can just say section this, section that, section, and it's all gone. And it's just a blank page. And so really one of the most positive things, like they do provincially, is if you're going to exempt a document, then you're going to have to list not only which exemptions you want, but the date and place and of the document. And so if someone wanted to appeal it meaningfully, they can have a bit of an idea of what foolishness you're doing to give them nothing.
D'accord, ben je trouve ça.
I find it very interesting. Mr. Rubin, are there entities or organizations that are excluded from the Act that shouldn't be? Are enough organizations subject to the Act?
No, particularly the private sector, who's sort of lives off the teat of the government in many ways.
Du côté gouvernemental, M. Rubin.
On the government side, are there government organizations that are not subject to the Act that should be?
Well, it's hard to keep track of all the subsidiaries of some of the Crown corporations and whether, like Canada Post ones, they're covered or not. But, you know, if you have significant funding, you know, I mean, NAVCAN is so-called private, but it's doing a public function. I mean, there's so many agencies, including, by the way, NGOs sometimes, that should be covered under legislation. We all shouldn't be under the table. We should all be above the table, and we all should be on a level playing field to release, not to say no 500 ways.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur.
Thank you very much.
Monsieur Villemur,
Thank you, Mr. Villemur.
MP Desjardins for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I just want to thank the witnesses again for being present here today. I think it's really important information. I've learned a lot, and I think something I want to take away from this for sure is that there is a cost to systemic and cultural problems with the interpretation of the right to access to information. And so I hear that full stop, and I just want to thank Mr. Rubin for highlighting the costs to Canadians. Residential schools, bribery, scandal, private corporation bailouts, the issues we're seeing in Hockey Canada, Armed Forces, RCMP, these are real costs to Canadians and their rights and their ability to actually understand these circumstances and how they're impacting themselves as being harmed. And so I feel that and I hear that plainly today. And so I want to thank you for that. Recently, of course, we've seen even more suppression, 10,000 documents by the Ministry of Justice in relation to residential school survivors in a current case that's before the court. And so this is happening in live time still today. And so this isn't going away. These problems are mounting over and over and over. And so I'd like, Mr. Rubin, I don't have much time, but I would like you to give some remarks in relation to the statutory review of the Access to Information Act. You mentioned that right now it's in your statement that you're not going to participate, but someone with your knowledge and expertise, there has to be wisdom there, and why. Could you please explain why you didn't want to participate in this process?
Because it's a pretend phony review built into the Act. All they want to do is promote their idea of proactive disclosure, which is really phony. All they want to do is do little changes to the Act. They don't want real change. And then they want you to believe that we agree that you should hear this. I mean, take the residential schools where I've applied for different Indigenous groups for records. I mean, it's kind of disgraceful that they or their land claims researchers can't get certain records. They have to wait so long for them because the harm was so great, yet they're getting exemptions like from the RCMP that says, well, there was sexual assault or other things connected to those files and we can't release them. Well, I think it's high time that they said, you've done the harm, including the RCMP, you damn well release them.
How much time, Chair?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Well, I just want to thank again the witnesses for your testimony today. It means a lot.
Thank you, MP Desjardins. I guess I could have given you Mr. Gord's extra 10 seconds or Monsieur Villemur, but I want to thank the witnesses for coming today, and I also invite you. This panel was supposed to go till 6 o'clock, and then we were going to follow that up with committee business. With votes, we're going to have to cut it short. I would invite you to submit any information that perhaps you may have missed to the committee as part of our study. I want to thank you all, Mr. Conacher, Mr. Rubin, and Mr. Cutler, for coming in today. You've served Canadians well, and I thank you for taking the time to be with committee today. I believe that I do have the consent, unless there's any objection to adjourn the meeting. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.